one Jewish architect, based in Berlin, doing all of this work. But we liked this design, and because it was broken, it was about loss, it was about absence. His design for the Jewish Museum in Berlin is built on a series of 6 voids. And he said that one of the voids has extended itself all the way to this site. And what's nice about his model was that it shows the, well, it's hard to see here, but you've got the Reichstag up at the upper left, you've got the Brandenburger Tor kind of in the middle above, and then you've got this space, and you've got Potsdamer Platz kind of behind me here. So we didn't choose this, but we liked it. We liked that it overran the boulevard there, and the little corner on the left went right into the Tiergarten, right to Goethe's bust. This one we liked a lot, and we actually voted this one first in a divided vote by Gesine Weinmiller, a young German architect, and I liked that very much. I didn't actually like the idea of choosing an American. I wanted to choose a German to make a German monument. And she proposed taking 18 segments of a wall, gigantic ones composed of these limestone blocks about the size of the limestone blocks of the Western Wall in Jerusalem, arranging them randomly down into the square. You can see the influence of Maya Lin here. So you descend into the square, the city would kind of disappear, city noises would kind of get quiet, and you would wander in and out of these, these segments. But then we noticed as we walked along this parapet and going from left to right, and we got to that corner on the far right, and looking down into the plaza, we could suddenly see that these random segments of wall actually composed themselves into a broken star, and as we kept walking, they fell apart. It's part of a perspectival illusion, and it was intentional, but she didn't want to tell anybody about it. She wanted everybody to come upon this themselves, which we did. But then we worried that it might be gimmicky, and what if that's all people wanted to find when they came here? So we had qualms about this as another competition. Finally, we chose Peter Eisenman and Richard Serra's design of originally proposed 4,200 stele covering this entire 5-acre, 20,000 square meter expanse right in the middle of Berlin. These stele would range from ground level to as high as 27 feet high. We like this. We know Richard Serra's work. He's really probably America's greatest kind of sculptor right now. Eisenman, very well-known American architect. So we proposed this is the winner. But we did send them back to the drawing board. We asked them to go back and scale it down, that it was too bombastic. And we were afraid, frankly, that it was going to be dangerous. We could see kids running out over the tops of these and falling in. And we could see people getting lost. I mean, remember, some of these are like 27 feet high, only barely, basically this wide, 93 centimeters apart, about just wide enough for one human being to come through. All of them 3 degrees off plumb. So we asked them to scale it down. This was the site before the memorial was installed. A lot of people like this big void. This is a placard that was at this site, which is very interesting. Before 1989, of course, the Berlin Wall, ran right through this site, right around the Brandenburger Tor, which was in East Germany. On the right-hand side was West Germany. And this site was actually no man's land. It was a minefield, literally a minefield, with barbed wire. It was a place where people had tried to escape from East Germany, climbing over the wall here where they were shot. So when the wall came down in '89, it became kind of prime real estate, and there was nothing there, so Helmut Kohl decided this would be a good place for the National Memorial. So Peter Eisenman went back and redesigned it and scaled it down and made the stele, these pillars, much smaller. And we liked that, but Richard Serra didn't like it. He said, well, if you scale it down, then it's no longer mine. I make big, dangerous things. My gigantic torqued ellipses out of Corten steel. And sometimes they do fall on the workmen installing them, and people even die putting them up. And I go, well, that's great, but we actually don't want something literally dangerous. We don't mind something suggesting danger and something suggesting ominousness, and we don't mind people feeling a little threatened by memory, but not literally threatened with their, with their lives. So Richard Serra left the project, leaving it to Eisenman, and was quite happy to be on his own. And this is what was, in fact, installed. These are the early models. This is when it was under construction. It became politically a huge football, back and forth. We selected this in 1997. It went to the parliament. There were elections held then in 98. Helmut Kohl was in CDU. We didn't do this politically. He just happened to be the chancellor when we were asked to do this. But when the elections came, the head of the SPD, the Social Democratic Party, Schroeder, decided that this was Kohl's project. He wanted to throw it out altogether and start over. He said, let's not have a memorial, let's just have a big library. And his culture minister, Michael Naumann, agreed. And so that's what they thought they were going to do. And so then it became an election issue. And so we were asked, just before the election, what is your final recommendation? We said, decide in your parliament, yes or no, do you want a memorial to Europe's murdered Jews in Berlin? If you say yes, then decide yes or no. Do you want Peter Eisenman's design, which we've recommended here? And if yes, third, do you want to establish a place of information built underneath that will tell the story of the Holocaust so that you have both a museum underneath and a memorial on top? Very abstract memorial on top with very concrete story underneath. Yes or no? And finally, if you have all of this, do you want to establish a memorial foundation that will pay for all this? And so they voted it. They voted all four of them up. They agreed. They had the election. And then next thing you know, Schroeder, of course, wins the election. The Social Democrats win. Michael Naumann becomes the culture minister for Schroeder. And then they're trying to put together a coalition. And they're saying, we're not going to build the monument. But they go to make a coalition. And they get the head of the Green Party, Joschka Fischer. And to make a governing coalition in parliamentary democracy, you have to get enough members of parties to put together to have a ruling or governing coalition. And they needed Joschka Fischer and the Green Party to put together their governing coalition. Joschka Fischer agreed to join the coalition only on the condition that the memorial be built. So now he was stuck. To go ahead and make a governing coalition, they had to build the memorial. Joschka Fischer went on to become the foreign minister, who eventually said, while the memorial is under construction in 1999, that memory and memorials are not enough. When asked by President Clinton to join the NATO forces against the Serbs, who had now cornered the Kosovars in Kosovo, Albanian Muslims, the last non-Christian population left in Europe, clearly they were about to massacre them, up to 1 million. It was quite clear it was a brand new genocide about to take place before everybody's eyes. And Joschka Fischer said, it's never enough only to remember, we must act. And as long as this memorial leads us to act, we'll go forward with it. And so he actually volunteered the German Air Force for the first time to leave German soil after World War II and to take part in these strikes against the Serbs, which did stop a new genocide. So the memorial for Joschka Fischer was an inspiration to prevent a new genocide. It would not become a substitute for action, but became a call to action. And that was a crucial turning point, in Holocaust memory. It actually led to something else being stopped. So we have all this in mind. We've gone through this huge process. It was dedicated actually only in 2005, finally, but it was under construction. And it was under construction actually in 2001 during the 9/11 attacks. I want to just show you the room underneath. It's 4 rooms underneath with a museum. And they've designed it in such a way that they seem to allow the stele to come into the space underneath to define it. So there seems to be like this interpenetration of shapes above defined by the space below and vice versa, kind of like a yin-yang of memory above and history below, each underpinning and shaping the other, which is a great design. and which also, I have to say, has inspired the National 9/11 Memorial and Museum, which is now, the memorial is on top, the museum is now below, anchored in this history of the day. The museum, by the way, in Ground Zero is about to open in May of this year. And this is how people use public spaces. It's not always pretty, but it was not our job to prescribe how people use them. And in fact, the kids do run out over the tops of these. Nobody likes it. And there are rules, but short of putting a fence around this place or having guards to tell people what they can do and can't do, this will happen. And we record it, we take note, and go from there. You can see how we got to the end now. September 11th, 2001, Islamic extremists, 19 of them take planes, fly them into the World Trade Center towers, into the Pentagon, and one plane is crashed in Pennsylvania, near Shanksville. That's how the towers looked. The towers weren't especially loved by artists and architects, but the city came to live with them. And of course, this was a highly public attack. Thousands and thousands, millions of people on TV, hundreds of millions